Good morning, everyone. 8:31. Wow. Good morning, everybody. We'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, and the State of New York Mortgage Agency. Let me turn things over to the secretary who will take the requisite legal steps to formally open our meeting.
All right, thank you. I just want to note first that Todd Sherman, representing Mr. Robert Mujica, Director of Division of the Budget, is participating in the meeting via video from the New York State Division of the Budget Conference Center at the Capitol Building 131 in Albany. Todd, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. Bethaida Gonzalez is participating from the Syracuse Regional Office. Bethaida, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. And Marge Rogatz is participating from Suite 312 in the Champion Office Suite in Garden City. Marge, you can hear us.
I can hear you. Good morning,
I will
everyone.
ask for okay, welcome. I will ask for motions and seconds to call to order the July 14th, 2016 meetings of HFA and Sunny May. Motion for HFA.
So moved. Second.
Motion for Sunny May.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
As items are presented to each board throughout today's meeting, these motions and seconds will be used unless specific votes call for a different vote. And by the way, the HFA vote was also for AHC, HFA subsidiary.
Okay, let me turn things over. It's okay. It's a rough start.
What the hell happened?
Gee, that was hard reading. Let me turn things over to President Rubin for his report.
Good morning. This will be a shorter report than usual. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Bill. Welcome, everybody. Today's agenda is quite brief. At this morning's Mortgage Insurance Committee meeting, 4 projects were approved for insurance. These approvals represent 262 affordable units located in New York, Bronx, and Westchester counties. HFA will be seeking approval on several administrative items in 3 projects in New York City, Westchester, and Monroe counties. And 2 of these are actually not new deals to us. The usual high level of activity at the agency since the last meeting. Have we not met since the end of legislative session? Is that right?
I thought we did.
We met June 9th.
June 9th, and the session ended
Yeah, a little
June
after that,
16th.
yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So happily, we passed a number of our departmental bills, which were critical to the functioning of the agency. Legislation gave us additional bonding authority, $2.5 billion to HFA and Sunny Mae, which is terrific. And we thank on all of these. You should just incorporate by. What do I say? Incorporate by.
By reference. Huh? Incorporated by reference.
By reference, yes. Thank you. Hey, Joyce, how are you? It's been 25 years since I actually did that.
We got a welcome for the new board member.
Welcome to our new Sunny Mae board member.
Not
Joyce
for late
Muller.
board members. They don't get
Exactly. The assistance and support of Todd Sherman and the folks at the Department of Budget, without whom we couldn't do anything. That's actually functionally true, but they happen to be very helpful and good friends of the agency. So for that departmental, we got passed a bill providing new investment powers for the MIF, which will allow it to invest in Ginnie Mae securities, which will provide additional income to the MIF, which is terrific. I think really sort of a breakthrough for the MIF, which until now had been limited to treasuries. I don't know if there's actually much of a spread difference. I don't know. Is Mike in the room? Is there still?
It's probably 40, 50 basis.
Okay, 40, 50 basis points on $1.2 billion. $1.5 billion. Great. That's real money. Totally adds up. And we will be spending that on hairstylists.
About time.
Yeah, okay.
Not everybody's
I don't think we're-
It's not going to be spread
I'm not
around.
gonna say, we're not-
The utility of that is not
equal use.
It's not equal use, but that's okay. We have other, that was a reference to the French government. Nobody caught that. And then finally, a very cool bill that created the neighborhood revitalization program, Sunny Mae, which is designed to stimulate home ownership in areas hardest hit by the foreclosure crisis. We have talked about this, I think, some in past meetings, but the short version is that Sunny Mae now has the power to create subsidiaries that will be able to buy defaulting pre-foreclosure probably mortgages from HUD's subsidiary FHA, and do some other things that will enable us to help solve the zombie homes problem, which is terrific. It's really sort of groundbreaking stuff for us, and there's an auction in September that we hope to take part in. In related news, Governor Cuomo signed a comprehensive legislative package that included that piece of legislation and a couple of bills from the Department of Financial Services designed to assist homeowners and communities as part of the suffering from the foreclosure crisis. The package includes the Community Restoration Fund, which I think I just talked about, and a hotline where not operated by us but DFS, where New Yorkers can report vacant and abandoned properties or zombie homes in their communities through the New York State Department of Financial Services. There are other good pieces of that legislation that are aimed at expediting the speed of the foreclosure process, which is the slowest, I think, in the country in this state, and some other things. And we're working closely with DFS on a number of initiatives in that area, which is great. And we were part of a ceremony, a series of signing ceremonies that the governor held throughout the state on that day. One day back in June. I'm continuing to travel around, as does, of course, everybody else in the agency. June 13th, I was in Rochester, participated in several events, including a groundbreaking for the Sibley redevelopment project, which is really a signature feature of the turnaround in Rochester. It's a gigantic project in the Sibley building, which is a big former department store site, now sort of a mixed-use commercial and soon-to-be residential site in the middle of Rochester, right near a bunch of other things that we've done, which is great. It's a signature piece of real estate for the city. It's a $100 million project. We've invested $10 million in tax credits. We're creating 72 units of mixed income senior housing, and then the state has put in a bunch of other money into different parts of that development, so that was terrific. And then I did a couple of other things in Rochester around some community development, community work that we're doing, which was terrific. Really an interesting window into what's going on in Rochester. I've given a couple of speeches that nobody paid attention to, let's see. We had a great meeting out in Co-op City with our new colleagues, former Senator Ruth Hassel Thompson, who's in the back of the room. If you could just raise your hand so we know that you're here. Just recently retired from her stint in the New York State Senate, representing parts of Westchester and the Bronx, including Co-op City. And we visited with Co-op City's on-site, did a site visit a few weeks ago at Co-op City with the board and various officials. We had a representative of some elected officials there, people from HUD, people from the city government, lots of folks from this agency. And I think they have really done a terrific thing by bringing in Douglas Elliman to oversee the management of Co-op City. This agency has a fair amount of money on the line as part of the large package of loans to Co-op City from a few years ago. The federal government has about $650 million at stake there, and so management is critical not only to the fiscal soundness of Co-op City, but of course to making sure that the 60,000 people that live there continue to get the service that they're paying for. And I think we took a lot of comfort from that meeting, and sort of resetting of the relationship. And then finally, we are continuing to push. We were unsuccessful, I guess, in getting the full memorandum of understanding signed by the end of the legislative session that would have released the entire $2 billion of our housing plan money for the next 5 years, but we did successfully get $150 million, which is less than $2 billion.
That's why you're commissioner. You said you can do that.
I spent 15 years on Wall Street, my friend. That math is how
That's why Wall Street.
That is why Wall Street, exactly. That's high math. We managed to get $150 million for the first year of construction or development of supportive housing throughout the state towards our the governor's 6,000 units commitment over that period. And we are continuing to push very hard, as are all of our friends in the community, in this period after the legislative session ended, to get more money released through another either small or larger MOU. And I think we're optimistic. There doesn't seem to be any reason not to do this. It's just that it's a lot of money and we're asking for a lot, and we recognize that, and the legislature's appropriately rigorous about figuring out what exactly we're proposing to do with it. So we're engaging in more discussions with staff at both the Senate and the Assembly, have a lot of support as always from our friends at DOB, and we're optimistic about getting something done. I think that's basically it, and I'll turn it back to the chair.
All right, thank you. Alex is now going to report on committee actions.
Okay, the Mortgage Insurance Committee met earlier today. It adopted the minutes of its June 9th meeting. It recommended approval of 100% mortgage insurance on an HFA permanent first mortgage loan for Chapel Court Commons. It recommended approval of 100% mortgage insurance on a Bellwether Enterprise Real Estate Capital first mortgage loan in New York County. It approved 100% mortgage insurance on a Wells Fargo first mortgage loan for Jericho Walton Apartments in the Bronx. It approved 100% mortgage insurance on a increase in a CPC permanent first mortgage loan in the Bronx.
Okay, we'll now present items shared by HFA, AHC, and SUNY May. Now let's record the approval of the minutes.
The minutes of the meetings of HFA, AHC, and Sunny May held on June 9th, 2016, and those for the special meeting of HFA held on June 28th, 2016, shall be deemed approved, absent corrections from the members. We had the members' folders have a correction on the minutes. That's it.
Following two items are consent items. There'll be no discussion on these items unless board members request. Item 2, resolution approving the creation of a panel to provide professional temporary staffing consulting services.
Now before the HFA, AHC, and Sunny May boards for approval is a resolution of HFA, AHC, and Sunny May approving professional temporary consulting services, assuming the first and seconds previously entered for HFA, AHC, and
Alex?
Sorry, I have a question. My understanding is this is a 5-year contract? Is that correct?
We're asking for authorization to enter into a contract on an as-needed basis for a period not to exceed 5 years.
Okay. Why are we doing this as a contract to a third party rather than directly hiring staff? Just for the record.
No, that's a very good question.
Gee, it's funny that you might ask. No,
That is an excellent question.
Commissioner.
Well, let me take a stab at it. Betsy, how about you step to the table? Betsy, now our chief operating officer, is putting up her finger. You have something you want to? No.
There was no. I really don't want to come to the table.
No. I mean, I have my own answer. I don't know if there's more that I'm missing. My answer is, temp staff. This is really for temp staff.
Well, it's temp to permanent, and we've had some difficulty finding capable people to fill slots. So we need a temporary agency to locate the staff for us.
Yeah.
And to provide us the flexibility over the course of the years.
Yeah, I mean, periodically we need swing staff that we don't feel we need to add to the state payroll with benefits and all that kind of stuff. And so that, like any other institution, we need the ability to do that.
It's not in substitute of or lieu of. No. It's in combination with, to provide us flexibility to have either option.
Okay, but I assume though that hiring staff in this manner is less costly to the state than hiring permanent staff would be, and we don't incur the problem of having them for the next 20 years when we don't know what's going to be happening.
That would be the best practice would be to say, you do the analysis that, yes, you're right. I mean, as you know, if it's going to be cheaper to hire temp staff or whatever it is, then we would have all in. We would make the decision to do temp for a project or whatever.
Even though it does give you the option to do temp to permanent.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will tell you.
Try them out for a period of time.
Yeah, to try them out. It is a challenge for us to get people hired permanently. I'm looking at Diana, my head of the Office of Professional Services, et cetera. This sort of oversees all the administrative functions of the agency. Will not if I tell you that we are under our fill on all parts of this agency, and the folks in the room with the big bags under their eyes can attest to the impact of that. I mean, we do a ton of work with this agency, we put on the people, and it's not because we are trying to run lean. It's because it can be very, very hard for us to bring people on in a timely or at all, timely fashion or at all. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And so we end up, I would guess, I know there are parts of this agency where we do end up using more temp labor than we really want to.
Thank
Does
you.
that answer your question?
Thank you.
All right, so we'll do that again. So now before HFA, AHC, and Sunny May is a resolution of HFA, AHC, and Sunny May Professional Temporary Consulting Services. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for HFA, AHC, and Sunny May, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
All right, Alex, take the requisite steps to take us into executive session.
Okay, I'm going to ask a motion and a second from HFA Sunny May AHC to go into executive session pursuant to Section 105D of the Open Meetings Law to discuss collective bargaining negotiations. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
Assuming, and we are going to go into executive session.
Ask for a motion and a second to reconvene the public session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
We're back in public session. And again, everybody should understand that no votes were taken in executive session. I'm gonna wait. Oh, we're gonna wait. I'll wait for 60 seconds until the commissioner returns.
And then we'll go on without him.
We could, I mean.
Okay.
Okay, now the commissioner's back, we can start. No, no,
All right.
by the way. We're back. Item 3, approval of collective bargaining agreement. Commissioner, want to say?
I think the only thing I'd want to say here is that what we're doing here is voting, I guess, to ratify the agreement that has been negotiated with the UAW. I want to thank everybody on our side who participated in the negotiation process. Clearly, Mickey Naga, Sheila Robinson, Daryl Johnson, and anybody else who was involved. Me.
Wait,
Just kidding.
I'll pat you on the back. See, there you go. You don't have to pat yourself on the back. You got one from me.
No, seriously, it's great. And then, of course, on the union side, we had terrific partners on the other side of the table during the last few months. And I think the agreement that everybody's arrived to, that the union has already ratified, is a good one. It's fair for both sides, and it puts us on a good footing for the next several years. How long is the agreement? I guess I should use 2020. Terrific. And it should be a model. I know the state is doing similar things with PEF and the other unions. I think it's terrific that we're sort of leading the way in this. So I'm really delighted, and I'm pleased to recommend ratification.
Okay.
Now before all three boards is a resolution of the State of New York Mortgage Agency, AHC, and the Affordable Housing Corporation authorizing the execution of a memo of understanding with the unions. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for the agencies, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motions are carried and the resolution is adopted.
The next item on the agenda is an information item. There'll be no discussion on this item unless board members or directors so request. Item 4, current agency procurements in the lobbying restricted period. Now we'll move on to the SUNY May action items. Item 5, a resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on an $8,100,000 permanent first mortgage loan for Chappaqua Commons Apartments, Westchester County. This item was discussed and voted on earlier at today's Mortgage Insurance Committee meeting. It is now for a vote by the SUNY May Board. There'll be no discussion unless the directors so request. We'll now move on to the vote.
Now before the board for approval is a resolution of the State of New York Mortgage Agency approving 100% mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for an HFA permanent first mortgage loan for Chappaqua Commons Apartments in Westchester County. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for Sunny May, all in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is
Aye.
carried, the resolution adopted.
Item 6, resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $7,141,540 Bellwether Enterprise Permanent First Mortgage Loan, 428 to 426 West 204th Street, New York County. This item was discussed and voted on earlier today's Mortgage Insurance Committee meeting. It is now up for vote by the SUNY May Board. There will be no discussion unless the directors so request. Now move on to the vote.
Now before the board for approval is a resolution of the State of New York Mortgage Agency approving 100% mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for a Bellwether Enterprise permanent first mortgage loan for 428, 426 West 204th Street in New York County. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for Sunny May, all in favor please signify by saying aye.
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 It is carried. Resolution adopted.
There'll be no further items for the Sunny May board. I'm going to ask, let's start with Joyce. No, a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Assuming the first and seconds, the motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned. We just want to note that our next board meeting for Sunny May is scheduled for Thursday, September 15, 2016 at 8:30. We have tentatively scheduled a Sunny May August meeting for August 16th at 8:30 to address the possible need for MIF action on the Convention Center ESD bonds. We will let folks know more about that as the date approaches.
Okay, we'll move on to the HFA items. Alex called the order of the the Finance Committee meeting of HFA, which will be held jointly with HFA and AHC board meetings.
I will ask for motions and seconds to call to order the July 14, 2016 Finance Committee meeting of the New York State Housing Finance Agency. Motion?
So moved.
Second? Todd?
Second.
Okay. As items are presented to the committee throughout today's meeting, these motions and seconds will be used unless specific items call for a different vote or unless any committee member wishes to record his or her vote differently.
Okay, the minutes of the 55th meeting of the HFA committee shall be deemed approved, absent corrections from members and directors. Item 7, resolutions authorizing financing approval in an amount not to exceed $54,500,000 for 345 East 94th Street, New York County.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
345 East 94th Street, also known as the Chesapeake, is an existing building, 208 units, 165 market rate, 43 low income. That was financed originally by the agency in 1998, and some subsequent years in a multi-year issuance. The borrower has requested that the agency refund the existing bonds. The 1998 vintage bonds didn't have provisions for private placements. It's something that we passed in 2012, I believe.
Mary, could you speak into the microphone?
Sure. Is that better?
Well, I don't know.
I think that's more for, that's not for us, that's more for the tape.
It doesn't help the microphone.
I'll change seats with Brett.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I have one of those soft voices. Sometimes.
We're looking at each other like, yeah, no, let's learn something new every day.
All right. All right, so I'm going to leave that alone. In refunding the bonds, we'll put in all of the new sort of state-of-the-art that we have in our current resolutions. And the borrowers also asked that we issue an additional $10.9 million of taxable bonds. Those bonds will be used to cover both the cost of the refunding transaction and also to make improvements in the project, both in the portable units and in the market rate units and in the common areas. The bonds are expected to be purchased by Wells Fargo in a direct placement using a structure we've used probably 5 or 6 times to date. They'll be structured on a floating rate basis, percentage of LIBOR plus a spread, and on both the tax exempt and taxable side.
How much are they saving net?
I don't have that number.
Some amount of money.
Is there a saving to the agency? Or is there what is the difference?
No, these are, there's not savings to the agency because we don't take a principal position in these bonds. The financing costs are borne by the project and the developer. We don't have an obligation to pay, nor do we receive any financial benefit, but for the fees that we do make both on an upfront basis and an ongoing basis.
So it's more or less neutral as far as we're concerned.
But for the fact that they're issuing additional debt, and
right.
For that, the agency does earn additional upfront fees and additional ongoing fees.
So it's not a negative.
not a negative. Keeps the agency's bonds outstanding. I think it gives us a seat at the table should anything happen, the project, at a future point. I think the alternative would be to finance this on a conventional basis, pay off our bonds, and this keeps us at the table.
Well,
I think it's a positive.
So are we we're not really we're not a lender at this point to the project.
We still are,
Yeah.
technically.
Technically, okay. I only say that because arguably, I assume is there
But I would
leverage?
call it like a pass-through lender.
Yeah, right.
That's how I would characterize it, but that's the case for
That's most of our stuff. Yeah, but we don't.
everything but Sunny Way.
Right, but we don't want I get my only point is we don't want, if you're sort of thinking about why other reasons we might think carefully about this, we don't want projects that we're involved with to tip over, and they are
True.
taking on additional debt themselves, correct?
They are, but,
Is there a leverage ratio changing at all?
yes, a maximum of 65% LTV, which
Alright.
is what we've been seeing currently
All right.
on projects like this.
That's the reason to underwrite it, though, we'd underwrite everything else. But it's not, we think it's a conservative, it's not out of line with other stuff we do, that's all.
Can you speak to the
Marianne,
plan?
it's Todd. I have pardon the interruption. Is there a change in the regulatory period for the affordable units?
I'm sorry, could you repeat it? I didn't hear you.
I think he's asking, I assume you're asking, are we extending the regulatory period?
No.
Correct.
No, the regulatory agreement will run for the remaining term of the bonds, which is about 14 years. I don't know if Barbara knows the answer to this. It was very typical in the very beginning of bond deals in 80/20s, where the regulatory agreement expired once the bonds went away, once you passed the 15-year mark. I don't know whether this has a 30-year regulatory agreement currently. It does.
Yeah.
It does still have so we're not extending the period, all of which, very short answer.
So there's no extension of the debt term, and therefore the regulatory period that runs with the term of the debt remains the same?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I was going to ask a quick question on the variable rate portion. There's a
It's
plan-
all variable.
It's all variable, so is there a plan to hedge that?
They are planning to hedge that. They're going to buy a cap on a portion of the debt on the taxable portion, and it looks like there's some existing swaps on the tax exempt that they're going to be buying down. Again, the agency doesn't have a principal position in any of those interest rate hedges.
Any other questions?
Now before the committee and board are resolutions to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for the committee, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motions are carried, resolution adopted. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for the HFA board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, resolution adopted.
Item 8, resolutions authorizing financing approval in an amount not to exceed $12,800,000 for Chappaqua Commons Apartments, Westchester County.
Aye.
I assume Mr. Weiss is recused.
Yes.
Okay, great. Steve Weiss just walked out. He's recusing himself.
Hi, we're asking for resolutions, we're asking for authorization for the Chappaqua Commons Apartments project in the town of Newcastle, Westchester. The context for this project is that it's about as most substantial mixed income projects as I've seen in this agency in my time here. It's also the adaptive reuse of an important building in Chappaqua and part of a substantial redevelopment project that has a lot of other important investments for this area that our low-income tenants will benefit from. So this will involve the adaptive reuse of the 4-story former Reader's Digest headquarters in Newcastle into 64 units. There is really incredible range of incomes, including some 6 units that are very low income at 40%, 22 units at 60% of AMI, and then we have our SLIC units, but half of those units will be available to people earning 75% or less of area median income, which is important in such a high income area where the market rent can be so much more than a 90% AMI. There's also a substantial mix of bedroom sizes, both a large number of 2-bedroom units and some 3-bedroom units. We're asking for an allocation of $12.8 million of tax exempt bonds and an allocation
Well,
of
maybe I haven't.
$95 million of HFA subsidy loan. We are also authorizing, this is an HFA action, but state low-income housing credits of an amount of $405,000 annual allocation. We leverage substantially in this project. Westchester County is providing more than $4 million into the project. And the Citibank program that was particularly active last year is providing $320,000. I'm not sure there will be too many more projects like that from the settlement funding program. The investor is First Sterling. The mortgage is enhanced by Sunny Mae, and Citibank is the back-to-back structure. I mentioned that. Wilder Balter is the developer. I think we have somebody here. As I said, this is really part of a substantial redevelopment project, a 120-acre Chappaqua crossing. It'll include a Whole Foods and a Lifetime Fitness Center, in addition to commercial space and for-sale market condominiums. The master plan has a bunch of open space as well. We're a historic building within that campus. There's good transportation in this area, a jitney bus to the Harlem line of Chappaqua Station, as well as a bus line. So it's an interesting project. Questions?
This is a terrific project, and it's great to see the reuse. The only question I had was about the mix of units. I think it's great to see a mix, but I don't know, and I'm sure there's nothing we can do at this point, but I just asked the question about, given the community, given where this is located, it seems like 20 out of the 37 affordable units are 1-bedrooms. Obviously not studios, but if you think about sort of access for family housing, I don't know if there's any flexibility or how we approach the question of, perhaps getting in some more 2 or 3 bedrooms, and what the demand might be.
Yeah, I'm curious. Typically, we would look to having a prorated mix, and I'm just trying. I can't do that kind of math in my head about whether it's true in this particular location. We do have 11 2-bedroom units and 2 3-bedroom units as well. But typically, we seek to have the prorated amount. I can't do that kind of math whether it's true here. It looks like it's a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like it's.
I guess I'd also just offer that, as a lender, we typically see these projects once the zoning is baked, and that will oftentimes, drive the project that we're looking at, rather than, our resources really saying.
The zoning and the presence of the Westchester Fund really dictated the affordability mix. It may have played a role in that.
Right, and I know one of the big controversies in Westchester about affordable housing has been over family versus single and elderly and all of that. And it sounds like we may not have much we can do about it, but I just know it's something to think about.
Mm-hmm. What is the mix? I'm curious. Do you know what the mix offhand is in the other Chappaqua deal that we have at the agency?
In terms of 1 and 2 bedrooms, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think there's 3 bedrooms in that project.
Yeah.
But we can easily get it for you. That's good. Thank you.
Thanks. Joyce?
What is the period of time that the affordability requirements will be in place?
I imagine it's at least 30 years.
30 years?
Because of Westchester County, it's 50 years. 50 because of the presence of the Westchester County funding.
Even though it's a 99-year ground lease?
Yes.
That doesn't give us any additional.
We're not a party to the ground lease is the structure of the whole campus. So 50 years is substantial redevelopment or period of time. If our funding, our subordinate funding, isn't paid back after the 30-year period, we'll have as Marion likes to say, a seat at the table.
I'm 50 is better than 30.
Somebody will. Won't likely be any of us, but somebody will. Maybe. I don't
You never know.
I guess that's morbid.
The problem was 30 years ago when we were doing these, 30 years sounded like such a
Yeah.
long time. We didn't think we'd come to the end of the period.
In 51 years, you can discuss this item, okay?
If I'm still here in 51 years.
Any other questions?
I just had one quick question. On the back-to-back structure, the Ford bond purchase agreement, you negotiate upfront those spreads that you're gonna pay today's rates? Or how
Yes, we typically will time back-to-back deals to close in tandem with one of our open resolution deals. So we're using then current market rates to
Gotcha.
set the price.
Okay, thanks.
So one other thing, just in the credit committee discussions of this, one of the questions that came up was around the, and it's a question, but I think we instructed or something, the team to pay particular care to the marketing plan.
Exactly, yeah, we'll be working closely with them to make sure that the marketing plan is really reaching the least likely to apply.
And that
It's
marketing
important.
5 people.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now before the committee and board are resolutions that were adopted that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for the committee, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried, resolution adopted. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for HFA board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried, resolution adopted, noting the recusal of Vice Chairman Weiss. I'm gonna go get it.
Okay. Item 9, resolution authorizing additional subsidy loan, VOA Cobblestone Place, Monroe County, in the amount of $320,000.
Hi, we're asking for some additional subsidy for a project that we closed on last.
That was the Wilder Bolter people, I guess?
Yes.
See, when you go, like when you have a kid and you go to the show, you know, and your kid is the first one to perform, and then you have to sit for the rest of the kids.
You know, I think it actually works that way here.
Doesn't work well? Yeah. I think we need to institute that rule. You don't even sit there for 2 hours and listen to the other kids play the piano.
We'll put them last on the agenda this time. For kids.
Just seems wrong.
Okay, so we're asking for some additional subsidy for a project that we closed on late last year. A bit of context for this. In fall of last year, the agency between the 9% side and the 4% side closed or had awarded and then proceeded to close on some projects that were substantially impacted by a very late-breaking change in the Davis-Bacon wage rates for a few trades upstate that dramatically increased the costs. On the 9% side, between award and closing, we established a new policy to make sure that the agency can work with the developers by increasing the funding available to the project to help fill that gap. This is the only project that was impacted there where the wage rates actually went up and were published something like 2 days before closing, and the impact was, my memory is about $600,000 to the project. Some of that funding was, or some of that gap was made up by increased line tech, but we're asking for $320,000 to help fill the gap. This will be the last money distributed. The issue here is the developer wants to proceed, obviously because they're halfway through construction, but are nervous that the contingency will not be able to fully cover any contingency items. So we won't distribute this money if we're able to cover these additional costs by contingency, but this additional approval gives everybody comfort to proceed without talking about cutting scope.
Okay, and this situation was not created by the developer.
It wasn't. It was not. Yeah, that's why we established that policy.
Your buddies.
There was a real wide swing on a couple trades upstate in the Okay. Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, now before the board are resolutions that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered to the HFA board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, resolution adopted.
Thank you.
All right, our last item is a consent item. There'll be no discussion on this item unless board members so request. Item 10, a resolution approving contracts and expenditures for the business application modernization project. Alex.
Now before the board for approval is a resolution of the New York State Housing Finance Agency approving contractual agreements with Phoenix Business Consulting, Inc., SAP Public Services, Inc., and ProLink Solutions, Inc., relating to the implementation of the business application modernization project and approving use of funds for the project. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for HFA, all in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried, resolution adopted.
Okay. There being no further items for HFA Finance and Program Committee and HFA and AHC boards, I'm going to ask for motions and seconds to adjourn this incredibly lengthy meeting.
So moved.
Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for HFA Finance and Program, all in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, committee meeting adjourned. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for HFA and AHC, all in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motions are carried, meetings are adjourned. Next board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 15th at 8:30. We are looking to schedule an August meeting for August 16th at 8:30 a.m.